Welcome to your first notes video of the trimester. So today we're going to be doing Unit 1, Notes 1. So we're just going to do a review of solving equations. Now this is something that you probably did while you were in middle school, and we're just going to review it because you are going to need all of these moving forward. So let's go ahead and let's talk about solving equations. So first of all, there's a list of steps, and you want to write these down. So then if you're working on your homework and you get stuck, you have something you can reference. So I do want you guys to actually write this down. So the first step is to simplify each side of the equal sign by distributing and combining like terms. Now, you don't have to write all of that in its entirety. Pick out what you need in order to understand it. Biggest thing is that you simplify each side. Okay, how do you do that? By distributing and combining like terms. Now, if I'm talking too fast, you can always pause the video to finish what you're writing down. Okay, taking a look at step 2. Step 2 is to gather the variables to one side of the equal sign. So we want to get all our x's, all our y's, all our l's, whatever letter we're using, we want to get it all onto one side. The next step is to use addition or subtraction to cancel the constant. Okay, so we're trying to get rid of that constant. Okay, and last but not least, our fourth step is to use multiplication or division to cancel the coefficient. Now the coefficient is that number that's being multiplied outside of the letter. So in order to cancel it, we either have to multiply or divide depending upon what the number on the outside is doing. And remember, when you're canceling the constant and when you're canceling the coefficient, you always want to do the opposite of the operation that's being applied. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at an example. So for number 1, I want to look at step number 1. Now step number 1 is to simplify each side. So to do that, I need to combine x and 5x. So even though there's not a 1 written there, if there's no coefficient, then the coefficient is 1. So 1x plus 5x is 6x. So I get 6x minus 5 is equal to 1. So since it's a minus 5, I'm going to go ahead and add 5 to both sides to cancel that constant. Well, that's going to leave me 6x, and then 1 plus 5 is going to give me 6. So 6 times x, the 6 is being multiplied by the x, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 6. So 6 divided by 6 is 1. So here I get that x is equal to 1. Next, taking a look at number 2. Each side of the equal sign is simplified. So what I need to do now is get the x's on the same side. So since this is a negative 2x, I'm going to go ahead and add 2x to both sides. Well, 6x plus 2x is going to give me 8x minus 11 is equal to 5. So now I need to get that minus 11 over to the other side. So to do that, I'm going to add 11 to both sides. So then when I do that, 5 plus 11 is going to give me 16. Now that 8 is being multiplied by the x, so to get it over to the other side, I need to divide by 8. So then I get that 16 divided by 8 is equal to 2. So here my answer is x is equal to 2. Now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 3. So to solve number 3, the first thing I need to do is distribute so I can simplify on that side of the equation. Well, negative 4 times x is a negative 4x. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. And that's going to equal a negative x. So now what I need to do is get my negative 4x over to the other side. So since it's a negative 4x, in order to get it over to the other side, I'm going to have to add 4x. So then I have 12. Negative x plus 4x is going to give me 3x. Well, that 3 is being multiplied by the x, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3. Well, 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. So then for my answer, I end up getting that x is equal to 4. So now let's go ahead and take a look at number 4. So then I have negative 10 is equal to, here I want to combine both sides. So remember, if there's no x's or 1 in front of the x, that just means 1. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write 1 as 2 over 2. Okay, so when I write that as 2 over 2, I get 1/2 x plus 2 over 2x. Now remember that 2 over 2 is really just 1. Now the reason I did that is because here I have a common denominator. Since I have a common denominator, I can go ahead and add the numerators of the fraction. That's just simple rules of fractions. So then I end up getting 3/2 x. So here, what I actually am going to look at this as is negative 10 is equal to 3 times x divided by 2. So here's what I want to do. What's the opposite of dividing? Well, that's going to be multiplying. So to get rid of that 2, I'm actually going to multiply both sides by 2. Then over here, I'm going to get a negative 20 is equal to 3x, since that's going to go ahead and cancel out that. So then, in order to solve for x, I need to divide both sides by 3. So then I end up getting x is equal to a negative 20 divided by 3. So that's my final answer for number 4. Now let's take a look at proportions and solving proportions. So first thing you need to know, what is a proportion? A proportion is when you have two ratios that are equal to each other. Ratios are basically just fractions, okay? So if you have two fractions that are set equal to each other, you're going to use this method. So when you're solving proportions, what you're going to do is cross multiply. So you're going to multiply the top on one side times the bottom of the other, and the top on one side, the other side, and the bottom of the other. Then you're going to set the cross products equal to each other. So that's how you get rid of the fraction. They're going to be equal to each other. And then finally, you're going to solve the remaining equation, just as we did on numbers 1 through 4. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 5. So we have two fractions that are set equal to each other. So I'm going to take 8 times 15 and 2 times x. So 2 times x is going to give me 2x. 8 times 15 is going to give me 120. Since that 2 is being multiplied by the x, I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 2. Now notice when I cross multiplied, I set them equal to each other. And now I'm just solving. So then 120 divided by 2 is 60. So then you get that x is equal to 60. Now let's take a look at another one for number 6. You're going to take 6 times 11, and then you're going to take 3.27 times x. Well, 3.27 times x is just going to be 3.27x. Now that's going to be equal to 6 times 11, which is 66. Now that 3.27 is being multiplied by the x, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 3.27. And when I do that, I end up getting 66 divided by 3.27, which is going to be 20.18. So this right here is your final answer for number 6. Now, let's take a look at number 7. So we're going to cross multiply again because we have two fractions that are set equal to each other. So 3 times x is going to give me 3x. And then I'm going to take the 2 and I'm going to multiply it by the entire quantity of x minus 2, which is why I put the parentheses there. So now the first thing I want to do is distribute in that 2. So I get 3x is equal to 2 times x, which is 2x. 2 times negative 4, which is negative 4. Now this is a positive 2x, so to get it over to the other side, I have to subtract 2x. So 3x minus 2x is just x, and then you end up getting that x is equal to negative 4. So that's your final answer for number 7. Now let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 8. It says that your school is building a new computer lab. 400 square feet of the center will be available for computer stations. Each station requires 20 feet. Then it's going to ask us to write and solve an equation to find out how many computer stations can be placed in the new lab. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let x represent the number of computer stations. Okay, so then if you think about it, for every x computer station I have, it's going to be 20 square feet. Now that needs to equal a total of 400 square feet. So now that 20 is being multiplied by the x, so to get it over to the other side, I'm going to divide both sides by 20. And then I end up getting that x is equal to 20. Remember that x represents computer stations. So that means that my label for x is also going to be computer stations. Okay, so that's my final answer for number 8. All right, so let's take a look at setting up this chart. So I like this chart because it really helps when you're doing word problems. So that way, when you're doing word problems, if for chance you don't know what symbol is represented when you're trying to take a phrase and turn it into math, this is kind of a chart that'll help you out. So the first thing, it talks about added to, increased by, more than, some, addition to. Whenever you see those in a word problem, that means you're going to use addition, okay? Then when you take a look at the next one, if it says subtracted from, decreased by, less than, difference, taken away from, that is going to imply subtraction. Taking a look at the next one, multiplied by, product, times, 1/3 of, 1/4 of, 1/2 of, or twice, that's going to mean multiplication. Now we use multiplication in a number of ways. Okay, we use a star symbol, we use an X, or we just use a dot. All of those can sometimes mean multiplication. For the next one, if you see quotient, divided by, split into, groups, pieces, that's going to mean divide, which we can use the division symbol, but also remember that sometimes fractions can be looked at being divided as well. Now, if it says squared, that means you're going to take a letter and raise it to the second power. That's what squared is. If it says cube, that means you're going to take a certain letter and you're going to raise it to the third power. If it says to the nth power, that means you're going to take that letter and raise it to the nth power. So that means you're going to take a times a times a times a, and you're going to do that n amounts of times. Finally, is the same as or equal to simply just means the equal sign. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 9. All we're going to do is write these out as phrases. So the sum of a number and 16. So for all of my numbers, I'm going to use x. Okay, so a sum of a number, so x, and 16. So when you add x and 16, you need to get 32. For right now, you don't need to solve it. I just want you to add and multiply. Then, taking a look at the next one, the product of 16 and a number is equal to 32. So 16 times x is equal to 32. Now, just as a reminder, 16 times x we can also write as 16x. Okay, 16x means 16 times x. Taking a look at the next one, the quotient of a number. So, a number and 16. So that means we're taking our number, we're dividing it by 16, and that's going to be equal to 32. Okay? Then, the next one for number 12. The fourth power of a number is 16. So that means we're going to take x, we're going to raise it to the fourth power, and that's going to give us 16. Okay? Next, for number 13, the difference of a number and 16 is 32. So that means we take a number, we subtract 16, and that's going to give us 32. Okay? Last but not least, let's go ahead and let's take a look at this word problem. So it says a rock climbing gym charges non-members $16 per day to use the gym and $8 per day for equipment rental. So I'm going to let X represent the number of days that we actually go to the gym. Members pay a yearly fee of $450. So it doesn't matter how many days you go to the gym if you're a member, you're going to pay that $450. But you are going to pay $6 a day for equipment rental. So now we need to write and solve an equation. So for a non-member, for every X day they go, it costs $16 to get in. And also for every X day that we go, it costs $8 for equipment rental. Then, for a member, they're going to pay $450 just to get their membership. Then, for every X day that they go, they only have to pay $6 for equipment rental. So the first thing I'm going to do is combine my 16 and my 8. And that's going to give me 24x is equal to 6x plus 450. So now I need to get my x's on the same side, so I'm going to subtract 6x. 24 minus 6x is going to be 18 is equal to 450. Last but not least, that 18 is being multiplied. So I'm going to divide it, and then I get that x is equal to 25 days. So what I did is I set a non-member equal to a member, and then I solved for x. And by solving for x, I was able to determine that if you go to the gym 25 days, non-members and members pay the same. So if you go 26 days, you should get a membership. If you go 24, you should not. So that concludes your note video for today. Thank you for listening.